What's up guys, it's Longat here and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna show you how to make samples starting from a vocal chop. So we're gonna break down a sample I made using this method, and I will show you how I find the key of the vocal chop and put together different instruments that will complement the vocal chop and make it sound like a full sample at the end. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is the sample that we're gonna break down today, and this is what it sounds like. So first thing first, we need a vocal chop. In this case I went to Splice and I chose one, and this is what it sounds like without the effects. So here's the vocal chop sound with the effects. As effects, I use Neutron 2 to cut some of the lows or some of the highs and give it the radio effect. And I put Echo Boy for some delay. RC20, and I cut more of the lows and more of the highs. I put a little bit of distortion and some space. I use an M12 filter with the preset on no compass, and what it does basically is to filter more the vocal chop and make it sound wider, and I put the mix on 50%. And I added a little altar boy, and I used the preset to reach fifths and a Vala vintage verb to make it sound more ambient. So yeah, here's the vocal chop, and it sounds like some R&B pop stuff, and we're working at 93 BPM. And next thing to do is to analyze the vocal chop to find the key, and we're gonna use Melodyne. So we're gonna click transfer and we're gonna press play. The key is E minor, and as you can see, we're gonna show you a structure of the audio file. We can extract all this into a MIDI file, and we're gonna go to settings and save as MIDI. So here's the MIDI from the vocal chop, and as you can see, it's a little bit messy. So what I need to do now is to clean it up a little bit, to identify the chords that I need to start to build a melody background around the vocal chop. So yeah, this one right here is the clean version of the MIDI we saw before. This one right here. And these are the chords that we're gonna use to implement a melodic background around the vocal chop. I used a pad from Analog Lab, and this is what it sounds like. So as you can see here, the notes are always the same except from this part right here. And what I did here is to remove the E, and on the last part I removed D and B and added the C, just to not make it sound too repetitive, you know. and create a little bit of difference. And this pad is from Analog Lab, and the preset is Crown Flute. As the effects, I put a Decimort, preset is Action Movie, and EQ, and I cut a little bit of the lows and a little bit of the highs, and RC20. So I cut a little bit of the lows here on the EQ, and a little bit of the wobble, distortion, space, and magnetic. Then we have this scene right here. It's a sort of a counter melody that I played with my keyboard, and this is what it sounds like. Yeah, this synth is from Analog Lab, and the preset is called Burnout. And as the effects, I put an RC20, I cut a lot of the lows, a little bit of the highs, put some distortion and some space. Then I use Reels. It is a sort of a tape emulator, something like RC20, but I make it sound more vintage. And I use this preset called Excited Tape. Then I use Effect Rack, and I added a micro shift. It is a sort of detuned chorus to make it sound more spacey. Reverb, Cleverb, and I used the Long Clean preset, an EQ, and I cut some more of the lows and a little bit of the highs. And then I put Acro Boy for a little bit of delay, and I used Studio Tape Pong as preset. So then I put this arpeggio, and this is actually a synth bass, but I made it sound like a synth to create more movement on the sample, and this is what it sounds like. For this bass I used Analog Lab, and the preset is called 17 Stone House Bass. And I put an EQ, I cut a lot of the lows and a lot of the highs, so it's not gonna clash with the lead bass. I put a shaper box, and I use a filter, and I put the mix on 66%, so it's not gonna be too wet. And I use Decimort, preset is called Distant, and M12 filter from Arturia, and I use this No Compass preset to cut more lows and more highs and make it sound wider. And I put the mix on 50%. So then we go to the lead bass, and this is what it sounds like. And I use Analog Lab, preset is called Arom. I put a decapitator to make it sound more fat, and I put an EQ, and here I use an automation on the EQ that it goes like that. So yeah, it gives the synthwave feeling, you know. You cut a lot of the highs, then goes back. Like this creates more bounce. Also, I put this little note here to give it the bounce. And last thing, I use this percussion as a texture, and this is what it sounds like. Yeah, it's always the same, and I think I found this one on Splice as well, and there's no effects. So yeah, this is how the full sample sounds like.
So that's it pretty much for today, and I appreciate you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and see you at the next tutorial. Peace.